Hey there, Captain Mutant here. A whole season of Star Trek Discovery has come and gone. I've reviewed every episode as they aired, and I thought it would be interesting to discuss the season as a whole now.
Spoilers.
The good. First off, I really like the premise of throwing Discovery into the far future. The previous two seasons always clashed with existing canon regarding established technology and events, which caused obsessive nerds like myself to have issues with the writers, so setting the scene beyond the reach of any previous event was exciting. What happened? What's new? What new wonders will we see? I also really appreciated that towards the second half of the season, they started giving more and more peripheral crew members their moment to shine, letting characters other than Burnham make discoveries and resolve the situation. The worst case of the Burnham syndrome for me was in Forget Me Not, when she went down the trail with Adira and helped her join fully with her symbiote, when Dr. Culbert would have been the much better and logical choice. But other than that, things got much better, especially for Detmer the helmsman and ops officer Owasecond. I loved the new characters of Book and Vance. The chemistry between Book and Burnham was perfect. They really worked well together, and on top of that, Book was a very interesting and engaging character. Vance is perhaps the best admiral ever depicted on Star Trek. Firm, stern even, but incredibly fair. We see him constantly weighing the options between the overall needs of the Federation and the desires for those under his command, all done in a very measured and believable way. I'm very much looking forward to seeing more of both of them in the next season. I felt Saru was the best thing in this season. His journey dealing with his captaincy was great to watch, and I just wish we'd have more of him next season, but I guess that won't be happening. The bad. That's because Saru takes a leave of absence and Burnham is promoted. I wasn't disappointed that she finally made the captain, but it's the journey taken to get her there that annoyed me. You see, she didn't change. She's still the same impetuous Burnham we've always known, the one who gets the job done her way. It's the people around her who grew to accept her way of doing things, and from a story point of view, that's the least interesting character development we could possibly get. Another annoyance for me was that there were too many chance meetings of major characters. Space is staggeringly huge, and it sometimes felt like everything was happening in a little secluded village. Burnham's mom appearing at the right time, for instance, and that character we bumped into in the second episode and left to die, returns with a promotion for the finale, that sort of thing. There was also an odd plot hole. There was a mysterious song they introduced early on that many people across the galaxy knew, but apparently didn't know where it came from. It was supposed to be connected to the burn, but after enticing us with a musical mystery, that plot thread was then quickly forgotten. This lack of consistency in what was supposed to be an ongoing season-long story thread is frustrating. And speaking of a lack of consistency, the Spore Drive is supposed to make Discovery travel instantaneously anywhere in the galaxy, yet other ships can catch up with her with little difficulty. Asera somehow manages to find her and take her over, then Burnham and Book manage to catch up with her as she travels to Federation headquarters. It seems instantaneous travel is only instantaneous when you need it to be, and to me that smacks of lazy writing. You know, just like the kind of lazy writing that introduces a new skill to a character at the moment that ability becomes an asset for the crew. I'm thinking about Owasecond's ability to hold her breath for a very long time. It would have been much better had she been given a scene a few episodes prior where that skill was perhaps casually mentioned. You know, a nice little character moment in the mess hall, for instance. Something like what they did with the music mystery, placing little nuggets in a handful of episodes before forgetting all about it. Never mind, that's a bad example. But to introduce that skill just as you need it certainly feels like a Deus Ex Machina moment and is very poor writing, in my opinion. The ugly. Now, I do have a beef with the writers because they're being paid a lot of money to come up with amazing stories, and we get something really disappointing instead at times. An example of that was Georgiou disabling holograms by blinking. Yes, you could argue that there was a software glitch that she exploited, but how could she know of such a glitch in software that's 1,000 years ahead of what she's used to? It's like taking the best locksmith from 1000 AD, showing them our latest digital lock, and asking them to pick it. You wouldn't expect them to succeed, would you? And yet we get blinks and disabled hollows. Then there's the cavernous turbolift that seems to go on forever, and at the very least well beyond the boundaries of the ship itself. Now, some have suggested that this could be 32nd century technology that was implemented when Discovery was revamped, and pointed to the Enterprise episode Future Tense, when the crew encounter a ship from the future that's bigger on the inside. Except we've seen brief glimpses of Discovery's turbolift mechanism in previous episodes, like in Brother. And if you look closely at that episode, you'll realize the turbolift shaft is as cavernous in the 23rd century as it is in the 32nd. And shall we talk about the Guardian of Forever? Alright, let's talk about it. This device was added to the story solely to tickle the nostalgia of old fans. It was previously only featured in 2 episodes, once in the original series and the other in the animated show. But if you're going to dust off a fan favorite, don't alter it beyond recognition. The original Guardian was donut-shaped, could only present the past in a specific way, at a specific speed, and if you jumped through said donut, you'd end up in the past as yourself, with whatever you were wearing and carrying, hopefully around the time you meant to reach. Now, you can jump precisely at the exact moment you need to. You jump into the body of someone, very quantum leap, and take on the clothes and possessions of that person, except for your personal Fitbit because of plot convenience. And since our Georgiou jumped into Empress Georgiou's body, where did Empress Georgiou herself end up? Oh, and the Guardian looks like a man now, and the donut is a door, until it isn't. There was no need to bring the Guardian back if they were going to radically change it as they did. It's a big galaxy, and the writers could have come up with another magical time-traveling, universe-hopping device. The crew only found it thanks to the sphere data, so the writers could have come up with anything they could have imagined. And speaking of the sphere data, when it was revealed it had downloaded itself into 3 maintenance robots, I was excited. In what wonderful and creative way will they be used to take back control of the ship? I did not expect that the best the writers could come up with was to use them as cannon fodder and being blown to bits in corridor fights. Heck, the sphere data couldn't stop the turbolifts from closing or restart the life support system. These magical know-everything entities ended up knowing really nothing at all. How lazy and disappointing is that? And speaking of disappointing, the reveal of what caused the burn was beyond absurd, especially for a sci-fi fantasy story with decades of established history under its belt, but I've already moaned about that in my review of That Hope Is You Part 2. Inspiration. And now I'd like to point out movies the writers were inspired by in the last episode. I didn't notice this in any of the others, or maybe it was more subtle there, but they really pushed the boat out when it came to cinematic references in That Hope Is You Part 2. We had Discovery being swallowed up by the Emerald Chain's flagship, like in You Only Live Twice. Burnham jumping into the void to catch another turbolift, just like Anakin Skywalker in Attack of the Clones, except Anakin had the Force to slow himself down. Burnham only had plot armor. When Burnham fought Osira, she was pushed into the computer's programmable matter, similar to what happened in Superman 3. Shame Burnham didn't come out as an android, that would have been fun. And at the end, when the last sphere data maintenance robot was reactivated, there was a strong Shark Boy and Lava Girl feel to the scene. Considering the writers didn't do this in previous episodes, heck, in the previous seasons, it greatly cheapened the ending for me. Plus, the inspirations weren't exactly from celebrated classics of cinema. Final thoughts. Despite this list of criticism, there were some enjoyable moments in the season. The main problem for me was that the writing wasn't consistent nor properly thought out. In its golden age, during the 80s, 90s and noughties, Star Trek's writers often attempted to come up with a plausible explanation for how made-up technology worked. The bad side of that was line after line of technobabble, but the fun side was somewhat acceptable rationalization for far-fetched ideas. Tech transporters is an example. At its most basic concept, they can't exist, because in order to recreate something exactly as it was, down to the atom, you need to know both the position and velocity of every single atom in a body. Yet, according to the Heisenberg uncertainty principle, you can only ever know one of these values at any one time.
Heisenberg is pulled over by a police officer. And the policeman says, "Did you know you were going 85 miles per hour?" And Heisenberg says, "Darn it, now I don't know where I am."
So what did the tech writers come up with as a solution? Something they called the Heisenberg compensator. It shows they were well aware of issues with the device based on our current understanding, and came up with a fun, simple solution for those that were aware of the same. It's like letting you in on the joke without making fun of those who aren't aware of the issue. There's not enough of that, and way too much magic wand, magical fantasy thinking for my liking in modern Trek. But alright, those were my thoughts. What did you think of Star Trek Discovery's 3rd season? Let me know in the comments, and I'll speak to you next time.